In 2017, आपने ये बोला था कि this will be my last election.
Yeah.
Clearly, it is not. You're going to be fighting this one as well. So, what changed?
I think the situation in Punjab changed.
And amidst the tussle in Punjab Congress and ahead of the state elections, former Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amarinder Singh has said that he will be launching a party and will ally with the BJP and factions of the Akali Dal. This week we're going to focus on Punjab because there are lots of things which are happening now, many things which are unraveling, but a question which is being raised is, what about the captain? What's going to be his political move? What kind of an impact it may have on Punjab's politics and on the national level political narrative as well? I'm Pallavi Ghosh and my one take is exactly on this point, on what we often call the outliners. Now, who are the outliners? Outliners are people who form political parties that are hatke. Remember, down south, if we think of one quick example, it's that of Shashikala, where suddenly she seems to be becoming politically active, shedding tears over Jayalalitha, going to the memorial, and actually talking about the fact that she's going to fight to keep the memory of Jayalalitha alive. Whether she's going to float another political party, what really happens, that is going to be a long story because elections over there are still long away. But where elections are going to happen anytime soon is in Punjab. Now, Sidhu seems to be grabbing the headlines very often. Is he not taking back his resignation? Is he still with the Congress party? Are the Gandhis happy with him or unhappy with him? What about Charanjit Singh Channi? Now, it was very interesting because on the day when Navjot Singh Sidhu actually came to Delhi to meet the two top Congress leaders, which is K.C. Venugopal and the state in charge Harish Rawat, met Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra the next day. While he was driving down from Patiala to Delhi, there was an important meeting which suddenly happened when the Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi drove down to the farmhouse of the former Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amarinder Singh. It was called a courtesy call because a photo opportunity soon came out where we saw Channi with his newlywed son and daughter-in-law actually taking a picture with the former Punjab Chief Minister. Significance, however, was not lost. It can't be a mere coincidence. When Sidhu is going to be summoned by the top leadership of the Congress party, Channi is meeting one of the bitter enemies or opponents of Sidhu and meeting Captain Amarinder Singh. Now, if you look at Captain Amarinder Singh's public statements, he's been keeping his attack largely on Navjot Singh Sidhu. He said, I'm never going to allow Navjot Singh Sidhu to become the Chief Minister of Punjab or be successful in the political narrative. He's not been so critical of Charanjit Singh Channi. In fact, more of his criticism has been directed at, say, the Gandhis or at the Congress central leaders like Randeep Surjewala and K.C. Venugopal and not at Charanjit Singh Channi because he also understands that being a Dalit, that could be an important vote bank and he would be then deemed as anti-Dalit or anti-another Sikh or a Sardar. That perhaps also explains why Captain Amarinder Singh is keeping mum on that. But I think there's another important reason. If there's one thing who is a common enemy of Channi and Captain Amarinder Singh at this point of time, it's very clearly, Navjot Singh Sidhu. And therefore, he would rather have Channi on his side than to alienate Channi by criticizing him as well. Now, which brings us to a very important question on what is going to be the captain's next political move. How much of a damage can he do to Congress? Look, it's not the first time that a captain has tried to carve out a political party for himself. He did it, but he was not very successful. The Panthet party which he formed, he contested elections. Not only did he lose, but no one won from his political party and ultimately he merged it with the Congress party. Rest is history. This time round, the situation is little different than what it was when he first set up that political party in Punjab. First of all, many think that Congress is visibly weakened. From being the front runner or the only runner in Punjab elections till a few months back, it's now emerging as a multi-corner contest. Which is why I would explain to you, of course we all know BJP is not much of a player, but they can try and do some damage if they hobnob with the captain. There are the Akalis who cannot be completely washed out, though they still are on a back foot because they were very much a part of the cabinet meeting in which the farm laws were actually cleared, and this question is always going to be thrown back at the Badals that what were you doing then? Why is it that now you're resisting the farm laws? Because you know that in elections it's going to become a big issue. but they've also very strategically tied up with the BSP, which is where the Dalit votes come in, and which is what the Congress party has tried to counter by choosing a Dalit as a chief minister. Now, there are two parties which seem to be running parallel and almost neck to neck, and that is one, the Aam Aadmi Party, and the second is, of course, the Congress. Now, Aam Aadmi Party, I would not completely dismiss them off, despite the fact that last time round in elections, they were very much a front runner. But of course, at that point of time, there was a Captain Amarinder Singh who wasted no time in attacking Aam or criticizing Arvind Kejriwal. But this time round, what is happening is that the only thing which is actually putting them on a bit of a back foot is they don't have a CM face, which I am being told may actually come up in November. So they may announce a CM face. And therefore, this is something which could actually damage the Congress party to a very great extent, because there are some points on which Kejriwal has taken a march. For example, on announcing a free power, they are aggressive, they are going from village to village. But it's not that Channi is a greenhorn. He is actually inching forward, and many who are observing his style are realizing that he is actually to a very great extent playing the same game which the BJP plays at a national level. Now look at this picture which came out recently, which was tweeted out by the team of Charanjit Singh Channi, where he's on a chopper, he's on a flight actually, where he's clearing the files. And what is it that the tweet said is essentially the fact he's wasting no time, he's doing business and he's clearing up all the pending files, taking a quick decision. Now this is also a counter to Captain, who was often accused of being very laid back, decisions were pending, no meetings were taking place. Also, in comparison to the Captain, who was often seen as royalty, and in Punjab is actually not considered to be a very bad thing. But there's AAP which is breathing down the neck of the Congress, which projects itself as an Aam Aadmi Party. We are talking about the people on the streets, so on. And that's where Channi is also playing this card. For example, those impromptu getting down from his cavalcade, greeting and wishing newlyweds, or actually going across to temples and Gurdwara, meeting people. And on every single day, we see one tweet coming in from him with a photo opportunity. Channi is certainly playing his cards well, and many are also suggesting that much of the ground has been recovered by the Congress party thanks to Charanjit Singh Channi, and the kind of quick decisions are being taken. But to say that the Congress is in a comfortable position is completely wrong, because there's also a Navjot Singh Sidhu factor which cannot be ruled out. Now, just when everyone had thought that things are completely fine in Punjab, you had a letter from Sidhu to Sonia Gandhi where he put forward 13 points. And he wanted those 13 points to be listed out. Now, in all of this, all eyes on Captain Amarinder Singh, his next move. Everything, according to my sources, was going according to his plan. He actually was planning to give in his resignation officially to the Congress party, hoping that the Congress party is going to accept it ASAP. But apart from that, floating a political party. Look, it would be politically suicidal for the Captain in Punjab politics to be seen as openly aligning with the BJP because of the farmer anger. But in the midst of all this, what happened to upset his plans was the Lakhimpur tragedy. The BJP has come out looking very bad over there. Certainly in Punjab, it's going to be a factor which is going to keep coming up. We are seeing those protests which are coming up by the Punjab farmers, and therefore at this point of time, if the Captain is seen as hobnobbing and getting closer to the BJP, it's not going to work for him. What can work for him is in some way he can find a closure to these farmers' protests, but it should be seen as being advantageous to the farmers rather than being advantageous to the centre. Now, how can that happen? Because one thing the farmers are very clear on is the fact that the farm laws will have to be taken back. That is something it will be very difficult for the Captain to go back on. What my sources are telling me from sources close to him is he's trying to come out with a formula where the government puts these farm laws implementation on a further hold, promises to relook into it, setting up a committee to look into the matters. And if that really happens and the farmers are convinced to go back, because we saw what happened, for example, the death of a person whose hand was hung as a gruesome murder which took place and those arrests, so there is a back foot also which some of the farmers' organizations are facing as far as the border areas are concerned where the protests are taking place. If somehow the Captain is able to convince them that, look, I got you this peace, I brokered this peace, it can be seen to be a big advantage for them. See, it's very important for the farmers also to go back to their homes because they've been away for a very long time. There's also this question of earning. They need the money. They need that income. If the Captain is able to do that, he's going to be able to redeem himself and also project himself as a doer without being seen as someone who's bending too much in favor of the BJP. He's also likely to have the tacit support of the BJP because he's certainly making the right noises, whether it's about the surgical strikes, raising his concern over the BSF deployment, yet not criticizing it because he says we're a border state, this is exactly what we are worrying about. Look, in the border states and the border areas of Punjab, this is going to become an issue. At the end of the day, no family would want their child who's with the Fauj or anyone for that matter to be under attack from the Pakistan terrorists. And in that way, the captain's words may actually resonate on the border. So that's going to be one very important factor. What my sources are telling me is that there are going to be endless rounds of meetings he's going to have with the Home Minister. And his first priority essentially is going to ensure that these farmers' protests are called off. But more than that, he has to project himself as someone who is independent of the Congress, also independent of the BJP. So he's looking for the right time where he wants to send that resignation letter to the Congress. The silence of the captain is something which we all should watch out for. He's not been speaking out much. He's been very nuanced, very careful, even in the tweets he's coming out with. But I would say watch the face. For those who thought that UP elections are going to be cornering all the attention, well, there's Punjab right for you. What happens in Punjab is likely to have very important national connotations. What is it that the captain is going to be doing? Is he going to damage the Congress party not just at the state level but also at the centre? He's one of the truly nationalist Congress leaders. That's always been something which the Congress party has been caught on the back foot on, and that's the reason the Congress party is also going to be very, very careful in the kinds of words they use against him. And a Charanjit Singh Channi is also interesting to watch out for. He would rather have the captain by his side than have his back to him. And for him, the bigger enemy at this point of time is certainly Navjot Singh Sidhu. Do give in your reactions. This is an election season. We're going to be back with much, much more next time round. An outliner like the captain Amarinder Singh will he actually emerge as a big insider or a frontliner? Watch this space. We're going to be keeping a track on this. Thank you so much.